Alright, welcome. In this video we're going to be doing some more factoring practice. This time we're going to be practicing our grouping and factoring. And now if you might be looking at a worksheet that has a lot of problems on it, I'm only going to be doing the first few because this is for an Algebra 2 class, and in this class we're really focused on factoring expressions that are having a single variable in them. So the ones with x and y and a and b or m and n and p, like lots of variables in them, we're probably not going to do those in this video. Maybe I'll do one at the end. But these first few, these are good. These are like right at our level. They should be pretty familiar to us. We're going to look and we see a string of four things. We see kind of like a parallelism, like a similar ratio from 12 to -9 as 4 to -3. Okay, so we're going to group and factor. So that's where we take the first two and we say, okay, what can we factor out of these two? I need to zoom in, I think. I just actually need to shrink my page. So I'm going to take these two and say what's common to both of those. I'm seeing 2 powers of a, definitely, and also a factor of 3. So I'm going to factor out a 3a squared. And I'd be left with 4a minus 3. And then I have 4a minus 3 again, so there's nothing I can really factor out of these two. So I'll factor out a plus 1. I'll be left with a 4a minus 3. And over here I've got 4a minus 3. And I'm left with 3a squared plus 1. 3a squared plus 1 is not something that we're going to be able to factor, so we're just going to leave it like that. Okay. 2. Okay, over here again, 2 and 5, they don't have any common factors, so I'm going to just factor out 2 powers of b. And then over here, 6 and 15, they're both divisible by 3, so I'm going to factor that 3 out. But no, wait, if I multiply 3 by p, I would get 3p. I need to multiply 3 by 2p to get 6p. And then that makes it so that I can factor out the binomial, so that's a good sign. And p squared plus 3, that's not a difference of 2 squares. There's nothing we can do with that. So we're just going to leave it there. Number 3, 3n to the 3 minus 4n to the 2 plus 9n minus 12. Right. Let's say from these, I guess I can just only factor out a power of n squared and be left with a 3n and a -4. And over here, 9 and 12, they both have a factor of 3. So it'd be 3n and a -4. Okay, yeah, so I factor out the 3n minus 4. And I'm left with n squared plus 3, which is not factorable, so I'm done. Okay, now this next one, these are not really the good ones where there's then a difference of squares after doing the group and factor, but this is just kind of isolating the group and factor, and if you're needing practice on this, then this is actually probably exactly what you need. So what's common to 12 into the 3 and 4 into the 2? Okay, I've got the 4 into 2 powers of n. I'll be left with 3n plus 1. Okay, and then, okay, over here I also have 3n plus 1. There's nothing common there, so I'm going to factor out a 1. I factor out the 3n plus 1 because it's common to both things that I'm adding together. And I'm left with 4n squared and a positive 1. And 4n squared plus 1 is not something I can factor, so I know that I'm done here. Alright, now as I'm scrolling down, okay, here, these are the ones I was talking about at the beginning that I'm not going to do. Maybe I'll do these two. I'll do 2 with the extra variables for you if you're just looking for an extra challenge. But if all you're looking for is just the practice on the fundamentals, then you just need to go through the first 6. Let me look through the back page also, because I know there's a lot more. Yeah, there were a lot more, but they all had multiple variables on them. So I'm just going to do 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, and I'm just going to, call it there. Okay, so m to the 3 minus m to the 2 plus 2m minus 2. Alright, work with that. So we're going to say factor out 2 powers of m from the first 2. And I'm going to factor out a 2 from the 2m and -2, so m minus 1. Factor out the m minus 1 and left with an m squared plus 2. And kind of what I'm saying is that, oftentimes in my class at least, when you do group and factor, this thing that you're left with is not an m squared plus 2, but maybe something more like m squared minus 4, or m squared minus 9, or m squared minus 25, a difference of two squares that we could decompose into two more factors. So just like be on the lookout for that when you're working the other problems in my class, because I don't know that that's going to come up. I think maybe I'll just like throw in an extra example between number 6 and 7. But over here, these next two, 5n to the 3 minus 10n squared, I can factor out a 5 and 2 powers of n, and be left with an n minus 2, and 3 times n minus 2 also. Okay, factor out the n minus 2, and I'm left with 5n to the 2 plus 3. Now, let me add in another example. All right, so this one would be a good example of what I'm talking about here. So you go in and you do group and factor, and then when you factor out the binomial, the way that it usually goes, you're left with a difference of two squares in there somewhere. So I got x squared minus 25, and we know that that can break down into x plus 5 times x minus 5, so we have to do another step and say, okay, this is x plus 4 multiplied by x plus 5 times x minus 5. So I wouldn't want you to do all this practice and forget about that situation, because that's like really, really, really common in my class. It's like almost never do you just do group and factor and not have to go beyond that. Now, if you're looking just for a little bit of extra challenge, then let's just go ahead and dig into these ones with several variables in them. I'm not going to be doing number 9 and 10, but I think the techniques that we use on 7 and 8, oh boy, I'm not looking forward to that. Those numbers are looking pretty rough. But I can actually see that 56 divides 224, so it's going to be all right. I'll be able to figure it out, I hope. All right, so what's common to 35xy and negative 5x? Well, a 5 and an x. I think, what do I multiply that by? That would be a 7y and a negative 1. And then negative 56y plus 8, I can factor out an 8, but I should probably factor out a negative 8, so I'm left with a 7y and a negative 1. And then, if you just kind of like have faith and factor on the first two and the second two and do it right, then these aren't actually that bad, right? Because they're carefully chosen so that they work out. So 7y minus 1 multiplied by 5x and a negative 8. Okay. And number 8, okay, 56, I'm saying it divides 224 because 50 times 4 is 200 and 6 times 4 is 24. So I know I'm going to be able to factor out the 56, and there's an a in both of these. So I'll be left with a 4z plus 1c. And I can see that 21 divides 84 because 20 times 4 is 80 and 1 times 4 is 4. So I'll factor out a negative 21 and a y. I'll be left with a 4z and a positive c. So I factor out that 4z plus c, I'm left with a 56a minus 21y, but you see, this is pretty unfamiliar. This is not like really any of the stuff that we've done in my class this year. We don't really work with that many variables because this is, a pre-calculus class, and, the calculus we offer at my school, it's single variable. So I don't really need you to be worrying about that many variables at the same time. All right, that's going to be all for this set of group and factor. If you want to do the rest of the worksheet and you have it in front of you, I've got the solutions to it. Hopefully you also have just the answers document. But that's going to be all. Thanks for watching.